Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're stepping into a much more reflective space. We're going to be exploring one of the most isolating but also deeply human experiences. And that's the feeling of not enough. You know, that
Yeah.
feeling, right? That familiar kind of dull ache that just shows up the second you measure your life against someone else's highlight reel.
It happens so fast, almost without warning. You open up a social feed, you see an old colleague just landed a huge promotion, or maybe a competitor launches something that seems to just redefine whole market. And right there's this immediate, almost physical tightening in your chest. That feeling, that's our starting point for this deep dive.
I know that tightening so well. It feels like an accusation almost.
Right.
It's not just, ambition saying, "Oh, I want that." It's deeper. It's this quiet whisper that says, "You are fundamentally behind."
Yes, exactly.
And it feels like it's coming from outside. But what we're exploring today suggests this is it's an internal state, something we manufacture.
Precisely. That feeling isn't really about the other person's success, and it is certainly not about their intrinsic quality as a person. It's about holding up this internal psychological mirror. And it reflects not the person you actually are, with all your complexity and your growth, but the person you think you should be.
The gap.
It's the gap between your messy, moment-to-moment reality and their curated story.
Okay, so let's really unpack that mechanism. I think our mission here, for you listening, is to understand why this invisible scoreboard is always running. Especially when, society and the modern workplace are constantly telling us to check it. We need to figure out how to just step off it.
And here's the insight we want you to hold on to right from the start. It's a liberating one. Your value, your worthiness to exist and to create, it was never on that scoreboard to begin with. The whole game is flawed.
That's a profound idea. But it's so hard to integrate when the world feels like one giant competition. So let's get into this ache. If it's not just, superficial jealousy, what is this measurement thing really representing?
Well, this is not a new problem. Not by a long shot. We can look back thousands of years. Ancient psychology has a term for this relentless grading system. We can call it the measurement mind, or in the original Sanskrit, mana.
Mana. So it's not just vanity or pride.
Far from it. That's a really common misconception. Mana actually describes 3 different forms of comparison, and crucially, all of them cause suffering. Think of them as 3 traps.
Okay.
The first trap is that inflated sense of superiority, the "I'm better than you," which of course leads to isolation and arrogance. The second, and I think this is the most common one in our time, is the opposite. The deflated sense of inferiority, "I'm worse than you." And that's a straight path to shame, to paralysis, to bitterness.
What's the third trap?
The third one is a bit more subtle. It's the anxious need to be equal. I must be equal to you. And this leads to that relentless, just unsustainable striving. Overwork. This constant anxiety that if you slip up for even a second, you'll be exposed as less than.
All 3 sound exhausting.
They are. Because they all come from the same core belief that your worth is relative, that it depends on how you stack up against a constantly shifting landscape.
And we live in a culture that it weaponizes this. The whole architecture of our attention follower count, your job title, even how successful your kids seem, it all becomes data to fuel mana. The subtext in so many professional interactions is just, where do you stand relative to me?
Yeah.
How do we even start to escape that?
First step is to recognize the psychological illusion that we're participating in. The illusion is that the self is this fixed thing, like a statue carved in stone that you have to defend at all costs. But the self isn't a statue, it's a dynamic process. It's more like a river, always flowing, always changing.
I hear that, and it sounds very wise, but, well, honestly, a bit abstract. When I see a competitor land a huge client, my brain doesn't think dynamic river, it thinks I failed. Or now my ability to pay the bills is threatened. How do we bridge that gap?
That's where the power of awareness comes in. We can use the metaphor of the sky and the weather. Your successes, your failures, those moments of high visibility or total obscurity, they're all just temporary weather patterns. They're passing through the vast sky of your awareness.
They aren't the sky itself.
They come and they go, but they don't define the sky. Your value is the sky, not the storm that's just passing through.
But the storm, when it hits, the pain feels incredibly real. Why does something so temporary hurt so much?
Because the emotion is a messenger. It's signaling a very deep, very legitimate human need. That ache, that feeling of falling short. It's pointing to a fundamental longing, the need to matter, to be seen, and crucially, to belong. The tragic mistake we make is we seek that belonging through competition instead of connection. We try to win the race to prove we deserve a spot instead of realizing we belong just by being here.
So the feeling of comparison it's fertile ground then. It's not a sign I'm a bad person,
Oh,
but a signal of a deep, unfulfilled need.
absolutely. Think of the ancient metaphor of the lotus flower. It grows in muddy water, right? But it blooms with total purity. The mud isn't its enemy. It's the necessary condition for its growth. That uncomfortable feeling of comparison is the mud from which real self-awareness can rise.
So the ego isn't the villain here.
Not at all. It's an overactive and actually very loyal survival mechanism. It's constantly scanning for threats to its most fragile story. I am enough.
Which means we should meet it with curiosity, not shame. We ask, what is this feeling trying to protect in me? That reframes the whole thing.
That is the gateway to freedom, yes.
Okay, so if the ego is this alarm system, let's look at what fuels it. What's the root cause of this illusion of separation?
Let's use another metaphor. Imagine you're walking through a dimly lit room late at night. You see a coiled shape on the floor. Instantly, your heart starts racing. You think it's a snake.
Okay, yeah.
The fear is 100% real. Your adrenaline spikes, your body tenses up. But the threat is imagined. It's just a piece of old rope.
The suffering is real, but the snake is just a rope. I can see how comparison is structured just like that.
It is. It's fueled by what's known as dualistic thinking, or via Dieu. It's the mental framework that believes the world is zero-sum. If they rise, I must fall. Or if their idea got chosen, mine must have been worthless. This system demands the constant defense of a separate, solid I.
And that's where the illusion really deepens, because the I we're defending isn't solid at all, is it? It's like we're defending a fortress made of fog.
Exactly. The self is not this fixed monolithic thing, it's a temporary story. It's stitched together moment by moment from constantly changing conditions, your stress level, a memory of past criticism, your hope for tomorrow. Clinging to that fixed story is the root of dukkha, that subtle friction or suffering we feel.
So when the feeling comes up, when that comparison siren goes off, we have a choice. We can follow the usual script: resentment, withdrawal, maybe just unsustainable overwork. Or we can choose what you're calling active witnessing.
Active witnessing is mindfulness in action. It's the quiet, decisive ability to just say, here's the story of falling behind, arising again. You name it. You acknowledge the feeling, but you don't let it drag you into the whole drama. You see it as mental weather, a passing cloud.
And in just naming it.
In that simple act of naming the cloud, it loses its power to hijack the entire sky.
This feels like a kind of emotional alchemy. If the painful energy of jealousy doesn't just vanish, but it becomes a doorway, what is it trying to show us? What's the gift inside?
It almost always points you directly to a value you cherish. When you feel envy about a colleague's great presentation, that jealousy isn't really saying you're a failure. It's saying the value of recognition or creativity or contribution that is deeply important to you. So the task is to turn that energy inward to honor that value on your own terms, not outward in painful comparison.
I love that. Turning the heat toward creation, not competition.
This is the shift from scarcity to abundance thinking. Remember the candle metaphor? If you use one candle to light a second one, does the first candle get any dimmer?
No. The light just multiplies.
And that's the reality of wisdom, creativity, insight. They are abundant. Your colleague's success does not diminish your potential one bit. It's just another flame adding light to the room. The ego's economy is scarcity, but awareness reveals an economy of abundance. When we really get that, competition can dissolve into genuine curiosity. We stop asking, are they better than me? And we can start asking, what can I learn from them?
That's so practical. I mean, when we feel threatened by comparison, our threat network literally activates. It narrows our focus, it makes us less cognitively flexible. But when we approach success with curiosity, with openness, we activate empathy and insight. We literally get smarter just by relaxing that defensive stance.
The architecture of the illusion dissolves because the defense mechanism is no longer needed.
So let's talk about the ultimate shift. How do we move from rivalry, which can feel so automatic, to a genuine, a spacious happiness for other people? How do we find that turning point?
The turning point is quiet. It's immediate. It happens when you stop seeing that person as a threat or a rival, and you start seeing them as just a mirror of our shared, flawed, striving humanity. The emotions we tried to push away, the ache, the envy, they become these sacred signals pointing you back to your own heart.
There's that Mahayana teaching, right? That samsara and nirvana are not two. That the world of suffering and the world of awakening are the same reality, just seen through different eyes. So is comparison itself part of the path then?
It absolutely is. When you see through the ego's eyes, the workplace is a battlefield. Resources are finite. But when you see through the eyes of awareness, that moment of comparison becomes an invitation to wake up. The feelings it generates are the path. The ego wants to solve the problem by saying, I have to hustle harder, I have to become more like them. But awareness answers by saying, I must drop the act and return to myself.
And in that returning, something opens up. Something the text called Bodhisattva, the awakened heart.
That awakened heart emerges right in the place where you feel most exposed. When you stop fighting the feelings, the loyal but very confused ego can finally relax. And this shift is profound. It allows you to create from a place of wholeness, not chronic lack. You create to express what's alive in you, not to prove you deserve to be here.
Okay, so if someone listening is caught in a comparison spiral right now, maybe they just got rejected for something and their peer just announced a huge win. What's a small practical way they can create space just to interrupt that momentum?
There are 3 questions you can ask. They're designed to create that immediate psychological space. So next time comparison hits, just pause, take a breath, and ask yourself these.
Let's start with number 1.
First, what story am I telling myself right now? And be really honest. Is the story, I'm falling behind and I'll never catch up? Or my work is irrelevant? You have to name the snake.
Okay, and number 2.
Second, is the story absolutely true? Could there be another way to see this? Do I know all the unseen struggles, the full context of that person's success? Just asking this often reveals the gap. You realize the snake is probably just a rope.
And the third question, I think this is the most transformative one.
Third, what would compassion say to me in this moment? Compassion is the antidote to the judgment that's driving the comparison. And it would probably say something like, you are doing your best, your efforts matter, take a breath and just focus on the very next step in front of you.
That's a powerful sequence. It shifts the moment from judgment into a gentle, productive investigation. If we want to take that even further, to really dissolve the boundary between me and them, what's the advanced practice?
This is where we can move into an advanced heart practice. There's a Tibetan practice called Tonglen. It means sending and taking. So when you feel that envy toward a colleague, instead of pulling away, you practice Tonglen. You breathe in their struggle, the unseen effort, the pressure behind their success, the cost of being in that spotlight, and then you breathe out genuine goodwill. You wish them ease and continued success. That act, it's so counterintuitive, but it frees you. It dissolves the wall you built.
You stop seeing them as a target and start seeing them as another person under pressure.
Exactly.
That is the realization that freedom isn't found in achieving more, but in the choice to be present over performance. Someone else's success doesn't have to be my burden. It can be a shared victory.
And that leads to the ultimate paradox. The me that compares and the them you compare to are both, in a sense, ghosts. Just collections of thoughts and habits we mistake for a solid identity. The prison dissolves when we realize our light doesn't depend on dimming theirs.
It reminds me of that Zen story of the 2 monks. One carried a really heavy sack on his back, the other walked lightly. And the master asks why he carries so much, and the other monk says, because he has not yet learned to put it down. The burden is just the weight of should be, and we can choose to put it down.
That weight is the narrative of inadequacy. It's fueled by mana. We covered the pain of measuring, the illusion of separation from Dayadu, and the path to freedom through awareness and compassion, which allows Bodhicitta to emerge.
And what this realization allows you to do is shift from competition to co-creation. You start to see your colleagues not as ahead, but as walking alongside you, navigating their own mud. You belong just because you are here.
The less you defend that fixed manufactured self, the more profoundly you belong to life itself. The path to freedom was never about winning the race. It was about realizing there was never a race to begin with.
The beautiful, unmeasured sky. And with that, we'll leave you with a thought to mull over. What happens when you stop trying to be seen and you simply see?